Hey everyone. Yeah, I gotta get some rest in a little bit because I gotta work at 7 this morning. It's 7 o'clock, so hopefully I'll be okay. One thing I do notice is that when it's mostly a daytime shift, then I'm pretty much fine. It's like things go by fast and I'm more awake. But that's just me. Anyway, I thought I'd come here and I want to talk about something. Now, I don't normally talk about this, or I haven't really talked about it much. Um, Mainly because I've let people like Huey Toonmore, Nostalgia Critic, Zara Nazarak, Jaime Tude, I've let these people, Paranormal Rob, I've let these people talk about this a lot more than I would because they pretty much have more resources of doing it. Even Black Andre of Black Nerd Comedy, I've allowed to do it. And of course, I'm talking about the 80s, nostalgia, if you will. You know, and I say, and I talk about the 80s mostly from an animation kid's perspective, mostly from a kid's perspective, watching animated cartoons and stuff, because I lived it. From basically 1979 to now, I lived it. From 1979 to 1990, I lived all of the 80s. All of it. I lived, even though I was a baby, I lived during the near assassination of Ronald Reagan. I lived during the time of the Kansas City Royals and the St. Louis Cardinals met in the Highway 70 World Series. And yes, I lived even during the time when Kirk Gibson hit the home run off Dennis Eckersley, allowing the Dodgers to beat the A's in I think it was Game 3 of the World Series. And of course, most notably, I lived through the 1989 earthquake that rocked the Bay, if not that rocked the Bay area, and if not most of Northern and Central California. So yeah, I lived through all that. But I also lived through an era of time which I consider, and I've even mentioned this, in several videos, and I will say it again. I lived during what I thought was the golden age of animation, mostly television animation. Because there was not one network on a Saturday morning, there was not one syndicated channel on a weekday afternoon or a weekday morning, or even a Sunday morning, and even a Saturday morning. There was not one channel you did not tune in and see a Saturday morning cartoon. There wasn't. There was not one channel because every morning you would have something. Every weekday morning you would have something. In my case, when I lived in Hayward and Fremont and all that, it was KBHK, it was KTVU, it was KICU, it was Coffee, Channel 20, before it got bought out and got turned into a Chinese channel. And no offense to that, I can understand why they did it, with all due respect. I understand why they did it, but mostly Coffee 20 used to be the same way. 20, 44, KTVU, Channel 2, KICU, Channel 36, all were basically at the time of weekday mornings, weekday afternoons. They were all basically Saturday, but basically it was basically animation domination. Just kind of borrow a phrase from from Fox. It was animation domination for kids. And it was the same on Saturday mornings. This is why you have people like me coming out. This is why you have people like Zara Nazarak, Huey Lewis, Huey Toonmore, if you will. This is why you have Paranormal Rob. This is why you have someone like Animat, if you will. Black Nerd, Andre, Black Nerd Comedy, Nostalgia Critic, Doug Walker, James Wolfe, the Angry Video Game Nerd. And the list goes on. And those that send packages to me and Zara Nazarak and anybody else like Israel Decoy and Frank Hill. These are people that know from experience like I do. Whether it was a small portion of the 80s they experienced, the very end, or like me, the entire freaking decade. This was a time that you would want to look back on and say, I lived it, I saw these when they first came out. And not only did I see them when they first came out, not only did I experience it, but as a kid, of course, most of these being like a toy, basically being a 22-minute, 30-minute toy show, like most kids, I tried getting, my parents, bless the hearts of, God bless them for this. My parents tried their best to give me and my sisters a lot of the toys that the shows were based on. They really did. I mean, there is a picture on Facebook of me and my sisters one Christmas in the apartments on Harder Road in Hayward, California. I had a racetrack, one of those blue track racetracks, which I think the controllers were connected into the track or something. I had that. I also had a Voltron Velcro ball dartboard. That's right. I had a Voltron Velcro ball dartboard. You know those little and I've mentioned this before. Those little balls with the Velcro on it. I had that. I had the dartboard, and I remember the dartboard was right here, like this. Right here was my bedroom door. Like my bedroom door is right there, but still, it was like right here in the middle. This was my bedroom door right there, and I'd be over here, like on this side where the window is. Or at least as a kid, I'm hitting that right there. Right there. That was as far, like all the way here to here. That was as far as I was when I would throw the balls to the dartboard, to the Voltron dartboard. And I remember, and I know a lot of people had the same thing I did. It was a Voltron dartboard. It had Voltron right on the freaking dartboard. And I remember that. I had things, like I had some of the mask vehicles. I think I had the truck at one time. I know I had one of the cars. I know that. I know as a kid, the only way I had any kind of transforming robot was GoBots. I had some of the GoBots. I had that one GoBot, I can't think of his name. You know, he would talk when he would talk, basically his front window, what would be his front window in his car mode, would light up in green. Can't think of his name right now. But I had him, and I think I had Coptor. I had all those. Not all of them, but I had as much as I could. I had some of the Transformers too. One of the most notable Transformers I had sometimes was the kind that pulled back and popped up. That was it. Those were the Transformers I had until one year I ended up getting Snarl. I think it was Snarl, the can't think of the dinosaur name right now. The Stegosaurus. I think it's Stegosaurus or something like that. I had him. I got him one year. What does that tell you? The thing is, I had a lot of these things. My sisters, I had as much as I could. I had some Ninja Turtle figures. I had as much as I could. So did my sisters. We had as much as we got at that time. My sister, my oldest sister, named my niece after the main character's real alter ego in Gem. That's right. My niece is named after the real life alter ego of basically of the real life person that portrays Gem in the show. Yeah, she's named after that. You just take one R out. And she's even acknowledged that if she ever has another kid down the line, as a daughter, she's going to name it after after the alter ego of the real life individual in Gem. That's right, she's going to name her Gemini, or just Gem for short. So you kind of get the idea that Gem has had a huge impact on my family's life, especially when it comes to my sister and her family, mostly her and her daughter. So you see, this is an impact that the 80s have always had on people like us. And this is why, when people question why we come out and we spend hours and hours, minutes after minute, second after second. Why they ask and wonder why we take so long and talk so much about these things is because we have the right to do that because we experienced it. We lived through it. I remember every day I would get home from school, or it would be right after homeschooling. I'd go right into the living room when my mom would let me. I'd eat something first. She'd make me a little lunch. And then afterwards, making sure everything was taken care of, I'd sit my butt down in front of that television, and on came those cartoons. And again, that was sometimes after she would homeschool me, or even after I got home from school. When I got home from school sometimes, being in kindergarten and first grade, I got off a little early, just like they do nowadays. So I was able to go home, straight home, and be able to live through all of that. Being able to live through all of that. I lived through it all. I did. And again, that gives me the right. It gives Aaron Nizarak the right. It gives James Wolfe, Doug Walker, Huey Toonmore, Paranormal Rob, Israel Decoy, Frank Heel, Jaime Tude, anybody I've mentioned. It gives them the right. Angry Joe, Joe Vargas gives him the right to want to say this stuff, to talk about it. Irate Gamer, Chris Barnes. It gives him the right. Gamester81 gives him the right. It gives us all the right to want to talk about this stuff. Kyle Justin, Mike Mattel gives them the right. Rob Walker gives him the right. Lindsay Ellis gives her the right. It gives us all the right because we lived through it. We experienced it. We woke up, we came home, and we watched these shows. That is why nowadays, when we get news that a show is being released onto DVD for the first time, we get excited because it gives us a chance to rewatch our childhood. It gives us a chance for us to relive our childhood, the decade we grew up on. It allows us to share it with the new generation. And sometimes, believe it or not, this new generation likes what they see. They like what we used to watch. And why? Because if you ask people, because if you watch what's going on television now, if you see some of the shows that are on now, the new generation sometimes will come out, if not most times come out and say, hey, what you guys used to watch is a heck of a lot better than what we're getting right now. And that's a fact. I mean, you take a look at what's going on. You can have your SpongeBob's, you can have your, Adventure Times, your Gravity Falls, and all that, but none of those will pale, but none of them will ever live up to what we had in the 80s. None of them will live up to that standard. None of them will live up to the He-Mans, the She-Ras, the Gems, the Transformers, the G.I. Joes, the GoBots. None of them will live up to that. The Ninja Turtles of then, none of them will live up to that. These shows today, with no disrespect whatsoever, pale in comparison to what we had. We had a unique variety. Heck, we had freaking Saturday morning sometimes dedicate an hour and a half block to things they would call the Supercade, where they would show original animated specials or pilots for shows that were coming maybe the following fall. And what made this all unique even as well, that made the 80s very unique and something they should have kept going up until Saturday mornings officially ended. As some people would put it, they should have, and I'll be back in a second to tell you about that,